What?
Yeah.
Wait.
That's what my grandparents and my mother called it when I was growing up. The expensive bread box. You put all your bread in the microwave and it keeps
I
it.
had no
I'm
idea
going
you could do
stale.
that. Really?
Yep.
You never done
Yep.
that?
No.
Yeah.
This never occurred to me.
Yep, it works.
The only time I ever put bread in the microwave was like one time when I was a kid. I was like, I wonder what happens if you put bread in the microwave, and it just turns it to shit. So
I didn't mean microwave it.
I know, but I was like 9. Like, what do I know? You know?
Yeah,
So
there you go.
I was like, you know what I keep in my microwave? I usually keep like the sharp knives that I like cut things with. You know,
What?
fruit. Yeah. Well, because when you've got small kids, you can't.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, they just, and it would never occur to them to look in there. And you can't accidentally microwave something because you have to open the microwave to put in whatever.
Right.
So there's no danger of like accidentally blowing up your home by microwaving your fucking serrated bread knife.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest though, Dave, that sounds like a plot point in a horror movie is that someone turns on the microwave forgetting that there's knives in there, or in an action movie, like the hero's trying to escape the bad guys who are lurking around his house, and then he like turns on the microwave with the knives in it.
Yeah. Anyway, that's what I do with my bread. I keep it in the refrigerator, and I hope Henry won't notice that it's a little stiff tomorrow when he bites into his sandwich at lunch.
Dave Riedel, bread in the refrigerator, knives in the microwave.
Welcome to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Megan Kearns. I'm a contributor to Edge Media Network and a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
My name is Dave Riedel. I write about movies for some places, and I am also a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. Say that 5 times fast, kids.
I won't. My name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living.
No, you're not. Yes! Changed it up.
You're mixing it up.
Yeah. He is all those things.
I'm an imposter.
Yeah.
It's doppelganger Evan. It's evil Evan.
Right. It's that guy with the goatee.
Evan has a mustache and goatee. That would be amazing if like you sent us a screen grab of yourself right now and you just had a goatee and we're like stroking it like evil Spock, you know?
Oh, evil Spock is so good.
Yeah.
Well, in addition to talking about evil Spock, which I could talk about all episode long, we're going to talk about some movies, and we're going to talk about Zack Snyder's Justice League, Woodlands Dark and Days Bewitched, A History of Folk Horror, Wolfwalkers, and Godzilla vs. Kong. Before we get into that, just want to tell you about our Patreon. On this week's exclusive episode, we talk about the 1987 film Some Kind of Wonderful. And I also want to say, since we're recording this on Wednesday, March 31st, that it's Happy Trans Day of Visibility. So we want to acknowledge that and honor all of our trans listeners. So
yeah. And I would like to add that I saw a great meme that said, if you don't start using the proper pronouns, yours are going to be was were.
I've seen that too.
Yeah.
Yes. We're big proponents of pronouns here, as I really think everyone should be, and everyone should be respectful of them and of trans rights in general. All right.
Total agree.
Yay. That's because you guys are awesome. So we're going to kick things off. We're going to kick things off talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League, the 4-hour recut opus, if you will, that was, for those who don't know, you probably do know, but in case, if you're listening to the show, but in case you don't know, the reason this was recut was because Zack Snyder had to leave the original production because tragically his daughter committed suicide, and then gross Joss Whedon, and yes, I said gross because he is, Joss Whedon took over and reshot a lot of scenes, cut a lot of scenes, and Zack Snyder wanted to recut the film the way he had originally intended. And that's what this is. Well, maybe not originally, because he probably wouldn't have done a 4-hour film originally, but here you go. Here we are. So.
Yes.
Would he have done it in 4:3?
That's a great question. Would he have done it in 4:3? And I'm still not sure why it was done in 4:3.
I know.
So, as you can probably guess by the title, this is a DC superhero movie, and it is about the formation of the superhero team, the Justice League. At the beginning of the movie, Superman is dead because he died in Batman v Superman. And Bruce Wayne, Batman, knows that there's a looming threat of some kind on the horizon, and so he's trotting the globe trying to recruit his superhero team, which is Wonder Woman, Aquaman, The Flash, and Cyborg. And so part of it is a movie about him trying to track all these people down, and part of it is about a movie of them all deciding that they A, want to work together, and B, are going to pool their talents and resources to take down this villain named Steppenwolf, who has appeared on Earth, and he's chasing after these things called the MacGuffins. Mother boxes.
I think you mean the Infinity Stones.
Which, are basically supposed to bring about the end of the world and all that jazz. So I think that's the broad strokes. Did I leave anything important out?
You left.
There's a lot left out, but I don't know if it was important. Yikes!
No, it's. I wanted to hate this. I really did. And the first hour is interminable. It's so awful. But then when you finally get into the whole recruitment part, there was none of that in the other Justice League. So it was kind of, I don't want to say refreshing, but I'm glad I learned why each of them came on board and how they know about their powers and why they are the way they are. There's just none of that in Joss Whedon's Justice League. It's like this weird, it's just a movie of conflicting tones. And the one thing I will say in Joss Whedon's defense, the only thing is he had to turn in a movie that was 2 hours or shorter, or else it wouldn't, they'd take it away from him. So, but yeah, the 4-hour thing, and then shot in the TV ratio of the standard definition TV ratio. That's what we're talking about. You probably all know this, listeners, but TV standard definition is 4:3, which means for every 4 feet that it's wide, it's 3 feet tall, or segments, cubits, whatever.
I think square versus widescreen is probably an easier analogy for people.
Right.
When you see things in the square on the TV and there's room on the sides, not on the top and the bottom, you're looking at 4:3.
Right. And so in that respect, it was a lot better. And then, of course, the battle, when they're all battling Steppenwolf, it's kind of like, all right, well, I've seen this before. The only thing that was interesting about that was the Flash going back in time and watching all of their bodies get put back together because they exploded. That was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
That was cool.
Otherwise, it's just kind of like, a lot of, as the French would say, beaucoup de bruit pour rien. Much ado about nothing. It's just long and dark and ominous, and the only humor really comes from the Flash, and it's a good thing. Is Ezra Miller, is that their name?
Yes.
It's a good thing that's the performer playing the Flash, because if it was someone who didn't have that kind of comic sensibility, anyway, that's where I come down.
Evan. Evan, what did you think of the film?
So I didn't hate the first hour like Dave. I actually was pretty engaged. I think overall, aside from this movie being in 4:3, which I think is a really stupid choice, and aside from the fact that it's so unbearably long, it's actually, I kind of like it. I think it's a lot more cohesive of a story.
For sure.
We get backstory on all the people in the Justice League, all the heroes. We learn, like in Joss Whedon's version, we didn't get like anything on Cyborg or Flash. They're just like thrown in there.
Well, there's a reason why we don't get anything on Cyborg. If you guys know.
Oh, because of the Joss Whedon Ray Park.
Ray Fisher.
Ray Fisher, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So Ray Fisher talking about the harassment and abuse by Joss Whedon. Yeah, that's arguably why so much of his performance was cut from the film.
Yeah, I'm just going to say that it's almost like I'm glad there was a lot of Cyborg because it made a lot more sense. And his character actually had a lot to do.
Yes.
And it's
you'd never know that just from the original.
I know. And it's almost there are points when it seems like he's actually the main character in this, as opposed to Batman or Wonder Woman or one of the other members of the Justice League. It seems like Cyborg's leading the show.
That's actually intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah. Zack Snyder said that he was the heart of the film. So yeah, that you're absolutely right on that.
Yeah. And I also just want to mention there's a lot of really good actors slumming it in this movie. Joe Morton, Jeremy Irons, Ezra Miller,
Oh, I love Jeremy Irons as Alfred. I think he's hilarious.
No,
he had one line that made me LOL.
Yeah, he's great.
I'm not saying
LOL.
he's bad. I'm just saying he's slumming it. You can slum it and still be good in a movie. I'm just saying, it's also very, very. He's the first Alfred who's not like. Even Michael Caine is kind of like old as Alfred, and then you think of Michael Gough as like, oh, I wear a tuxedo and I look after Master Wayne. Whereas Jeremy Irons is just like, give me a brandy. Fucking Bruce Wayne, you dick. So, his character is a lot more palatable that way.
Yes, that's an accurate depiction of Jeremy Irons.
It's because, Evan, did you get to share everything that you liked about the film?
Let's see. So I think it's a lot more cohesive of a movie. I like the additional character development. I think there's probably still too much of it. Some of those scenes could be excised, and as much as I love some of the slow-mo in this movie, you could definitely speed it up and it would probably not need 4 hours. I think my only other gripe, I guess, is that the half-hour epilogue to me feels entirely unnecessary. And for me, it just destroyed any momentum that the movie had. And I was just like annoyed that I had to sit through something that was basically like Flights of Fancy. Like, if we had more money, or if this did better, we can have a sequel, or we could have some other timeline of this movie. That just to me felt completely superfluous.
Wow. I have so many things to say that disagree with both of you.
Anyway.
And agree. Oh my God. Okay. So
that's my piece.
So I'm going to give a little outside information, outside off mic, that I got texts from the two of you and you two were ripping this apart. And I jumped in and was like, guys, I don't hate it. I'm actually enjoying it. And that is a great succinct summation of my feelings on this film. I was like you, Dave, I was going and expecting to hate this because I do not like Zack Snyder. I do not like a single Zack Snyder film of the films I've seen of his, which I've seen a lot. And I think this is a vast improvement over the original. I think it's like both of you. I think it's really nice to see a superhero film with more fleshed out backstories of the characters. There's more character development, which you usually don't see. You don't have the writing for that. You don't have the space for that. Mm-hmm. And there's definitely space for it here. And I also have to say, like, I know it's a really, absurdly long runtime, but because it's broken up into chapters, I watched this over the course of 3 days and it was perfect. It was great. I watched, a little bit here, a little bit there. It was perfect. So I think that really is the ideal way to watch this film. I mean, for somebody else, it might be ideal to watch it all the way through. For me, it was not. And I will also agree with you, Evan, that there's way too much slow-mo. Good God, too much slow-mo. Mm-hmm. I know Zack Snyder is infatuated with the slow-mo and it's his style and it's his thing. But good God, do we need to have everything in slow-mo? Like everything? It's bananas. I am also going to disagree with you, Dave, and agree with you, Evan, that I really enjoyed the first hour of the film. I did not think it was horrible. I liked it tremendously. I was really into it. I was kind of excited to see where it was going to go. I think where it opens is a much better opening than the original film. I like that we see more in depth about the history of the mother boxes, even though, yes, they are MacGuffins, definitely. And I will say that the last about third of the film, when the battles are happening, I also like the recruiting too, very much. And I love that Cyborg and the Flash are so much more in this because Ezra Miller is fantastic. I think he's really, really great in this role, really perfectly cast and really funny. But the last third of the film, when they're actually doing the battle, I didn't enjoy that at all because the fight sequences to me, while at times looked good, for the most part looked really ugly. I thought the color palette is really ugly, like the rust orange and the gray and the black. I just think it looks awful. I thought it looked awful at the end of Wonder Woman, the first one, as much as I love that film, and I think it looks awful here. And yeah, and I wanted more. From the fight scenes. I want really beautiful fight scenes, really well choreographed, and I just didn't get that here. But again, overall, a huge improvement over the first film. Evan, to your point about the half-hour epilogue, I loved that. And I also love that where it ends on is a scene that we see in Batman versus Superman, where it's Bruce Wayne's nightmare and like a post-apocalyptic trek across the country in a ragtag group of bandits. I fucking love that shit. Like, I want to see that movie right now. I want to see post-apocalyptic Batman with a group of stragglers. I want to see it now. I love it. I don't care if it's an alternate timeline. I don't care if it's our timeline. I love it. So I was here for that.
Yeah. Give it to me in a short, and I'll take it in a short. I just didn't feel like it added anything being attached to the rest of this movie.
Also, Jared Leto as Batman as Batman. Fuck, as the Joker is a joke.
It's terrible. He's terrible. Yeah, no. I would literally rather see anyone else as Joker.
I wonder why they don't cast people you wouldn't think of, you know? Like, because you think of Jared Leto, you think, yeah, somebody would cast him as the Joker. You know, it's like how I...
Would you?
Yeah, it's why I always wanted David Cronenberg to like direct a Marvel movie. Because like, when the fuck would that happen?
Ooh.
You know? So
I want to see that now.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, that's the epilogue I kind of forgot about, but yeah, it was kind of a drag.
See, I really liked it, and I'll tell you, in addition to just the fact that I'm a sucker for dystopian post-apocalyptic shit, and that is totally my wheelhouse. But aside from that personal thing, the reason why I liked it is I feel that, and I like superhero films. I like them as a genre because I love comic books, and not that they're always done well, but I still do like them as a general rule. But the problem is that so often superhero films, I feel like, wrap up way too quickly. Like when the pinnacle battle, the climactic battle happens, and then it's over, and then it's like, okay, everything's back to normal. And it just feels so abrupt, and it doesn't work for me. And so I kind of liked that things were more drawn out here. It felt like there was room to breathe, and I liked that. Was it excessive? Yes. Was it unnecessary? Probably. But I still did appreciate it, that it's different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I also want to say, what kind of world are we living in that a filmmaker like Zack Snyder gets his name above the title of a movie? A guy named Zack has his name above a movie title. Zack Snyder's Justice League. Zack Snyder. So that snot-nosed kid who was always like flicking boogers at you in second grade has a movie out, and it's Zack Snyder's Justice League. That's all.
Wait. Are we really hung up on the name Zack? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, it's a bad name.
I'm not.
I meant we, the three, not necessarily that we all agree. Anyway. All right. Well, do you guys have any final thoughts before we move on to the next film? Anything you want to say?
Nah.
Evan?
I just really quickly, I just wanted to say I liked that with the addition of backstory on the heroes, we get more on the villain, Steppenwolf, and I like that they actually redesigned the villain. I think he looks a lot more menacing and a lot cooler in this version than he did originally. Like, I like that he got a makeover from like top to bottom.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree with you that I like that we get more of his backstory. I always want more backstory on characters in general, but especially villains, because it's like, why the fuck are they doing what they're doing? You know, and why should I be scared of him? Why should I be, intimidated? And yeah, I think I completely agree that having more backstory, and it's weird that so much of his backstory was cut in the theatrical release. It's very strange. But yeah, this felt like there were actual stakes, whereas the original, I think, the original to me felt sloppy. It felt rushed. I hated it. I could not stand it. And this, I was actually like, it's the same story, but it's done so much more fluidly. It's done in a much more compelling way. I actually know why things are happening. So yeah, and I think a big part of that is knowing the villain's backstory too. So I agree.
Sweet.
So Dave, do you still think we should delete the Snyder Cut?
I don't want a bunch of angry fans coming after me, so no.
Oh, and no. I was going to say. And I also, one more thing, I always like to see Amazon, so I was glad to see more Amazons because, Connie Nielsen, Robin Wright, I love you. Give me more Amazons any day of the week and Themyscira. So let's move on to our next film, which is Wolfwalkers.
A boo! Oh wait, sorry.
Yay! We're all howling.
I don't have a lot to say.
Oh well, before we jump in, I was going to give some background information on the film.
Okay.
Wolfwalkers is an animated fantasy. It's by Tom Moore and Ross Stewart. This is in their Celtic series, their Cartoon Saloon, who do the beautiful animated films like Secret of the Kells, Song of the Sea. This film is a Celtic story about a girl who and her mother who become wolves and run around with a pack of wolves. And I mean, that's a very, very broad overview. Does anyone, Evan, did you want to say more about the plot of the film?
Oh, well, yeah, it centers on Robin, who's Robin Goodfellow is her character's name. Her father, played by Sean Bean, is the wolf hunter in the kingdom that they live in, and she wants to take after him and go out hunting with him, but then she's taken aback when she meets Mabe, who is a wolfwalker, and she becomes friends with her and then becomes a wolfwalker herself, and so that's... She ends up finding out that the wolves aren't who she thought they were.
That is for sure. Okay, so I know Evan loves this. I know I love it. Dave, what did you think of this?
Oh, it was fine.
Okay.
I liked no, I was just gonna say I liked the main character. I thought she was really good. The what would you call her? The ginger wolfwalker? Not a fan. But I did feel bad.
Maeve is great.
Yeah. I did feel bad for her though that her mother was was imprisoned in a box in some weird, church kind of building. And also Oliver Cromwell didn't die by falling off a cliff because he thought a wolf was going to eat him.
If only.
But I mean, it doesn't. It looked good. I liked that it had a sort of more 2D hand drawn look. I don't know if it was hand drawn.
It is,
and I liked how you got to see like the wolf. Okay, it is. I like how you got to see the wolves' spirits like jumping out of the wolfwalkers while their human bodies were sleeping. I thought that was kind of cool. But on the whole, it's just kind of like it was fine. I don't have any problem with it, but
That's a shame.
Okay, Evan. I know. I think that's very disappointing. Evan, why don't you share why you loved it?
I mean, first off, this movie is just straight up adorable. Like the style of animation is adorable, but like her pet, Merlin, who is a falcon, right? Or a hawk or something. I don't remember if they say what Merlin is, but Merlin is adorable as hell and makes all kinds of cute faces. And I don't know. I'm a sucker for cute sidekicks. But I just love the colors in this film. Like they're just incredibly vibrant. Mm-hmm. The blues, the greens, the yellows, like of the forest, like everything is just so vivid. And I love seeing the transformation when they become wolfwalkers and they're, they become wolves, like the spirit like leaves the body and then they're running around. And I love that when they're in that form, they can see like the scent of each other in these like really bright, vivid colors. So it's gorgeous to look at. It's like a really sweet story about friendship and unexpected friendship and, standing up for what you believe in, even when it's incredibly difficult and dangerous, as it becomes for Robin in the film and her father, who's under the command of this guy, the Lord Commander, and the Lord Commander is ready to throw them both in the stocks, and they still stand up for what they believe in. And so that's amazing. And I don't know. I feel like the movie just becomes more and more vivid in its style of animation, like especially through like the climax of the movie, and just I love its use of split screens and the way that it's able to essentially like make montages with split screens or convey, lots of different action happening at the same time by splitting the screen into 3 and 4 pieces at a time. I love that.
Mm-hmm. I agree with everything you said.
Oh, awesome. What'd you think?
So I love it too. I have been gushing about it since I saw it ages ago. And I've been dying to talk about it on the show. So I'm so excited we're finally doing it. Although I'm bummed, Dave, you didn't like it more, but at least you thought it was okay. And we can't all love everything, I guess. I just wanted you to like this so much. But I want everyone to see it because I just think, like you, Evan, I think it's absolutely adorable. By the way, Merlin is a falcon. He's so cute. Nice. And I love their relationship, Robin's and Merlin's. I love the voice acting so much. This is some of the best voice acting I've heard in an animated film. I think it's incredible. Honor Neefsey, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, who does Robin, is great. Eva Whitaker, who does Maeve, is also great. Sean Bean I always love. And I love Maria Doyle Kennedy. She is amazing. She is such an underrated actress here in the States. And I adore her. She's great on Orphan Black and many, many other things. But she's always a delight to see or to hear in this case. And I just feel that the characters are so well developed and the voice acting is so nuanced and they're so much emoting and it's just wonderful. And I love the animation too. It's so lush. The colors are gorgeous, like you said, Evan. And I love the return to hand-drawn animation. And it's really beautiful. And it feels like a storybook. It really feels like you're reading or watching a storybook come to life. And I love that. And I love that it has kind of a woodcut feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I, like you, I also love the unexpected friendship. I also love that Robin starts off as a hunter and she's all about hunting wolves and she wants to take them down. But then when she learns about the wolves and she learns about the Wolfwalkers, she has a change of heart and she has a very different opinion on that. And as I gotta say, as an animal rights loving vegan, that warmed my heart just in and of itself. So I really love that Robin, the person who is so hell-bent on perfecting her aim with her bow and arrow to shoot and kill wolves, has become their staunchest defender. And I really, really love that. And I love her relationship with her father and how he just wants to protect her. And because his wife, her mother died. And so he's just trying to, do his best as a single parent. And, obviously that's a trope, the dead mother. But I love that Maeve has her mother. And so we do see a very alive parent and also a very powerful, I don't want to say sorceress, but definitely someone who's in tune with magic, which is really cool to see. And yeah, I love this. I think this is so sweet and so lovely. And I think it's one of the absolute best films of the year. I think it's of last year. I think it's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Its nomination for best animated for the Oscars, I think is well deserved.
Oh, absolutely. I really hope it wins. I don't know if it will, but I hope it does. I also have to say, I think the music is absolutely exquisite in this.
Mm-hmm.
Like Running with the Wolves, I sing it. I watch the video. I sing along. I love it.
I wish I liked it better because you two liked it so much. It just, I liked the bird. He was cool too, Merlin.
I'm still not sure why you didn't like the film, but that's okay.
No, it's not that I didn't like it. It was just kind of like, it was fine. I mean, I don't know what it is. Just animation, the older I get, the less I want to see it. I'm not sure why. I used to go to Spike and Mike every year, but now, that doesn't exist anymore anyway. So
I don't know what that is.
And I'll just add that, I don't know either.
Okay, well, let's move on to our next film, which is the horror documentary Woodlands, Dark and Days Bewitched, A History of Folk Horror by Kier-La Janisse. And I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly.
I don't know whether you're pronouncing her name correctly, but boy, is this movie long. 3 hours and 13 minutes.
Yes, I was going to say it is an over 3 hour film, as you just said. And this is an extremely comprehensive history of folk horror. And we will get more into the different facets of the film, how it talks about the origins of it through literature and in British folk horror films, American folk horror films. And then it expands to globally. And then within those subsections, it also delves into themes, it delves into regions, and it has talking heads, it has clips of films. And yeah, so has a lot going on. But I would like to know, what did you guys think of the film?
Evan, take it away.
I really dig the concept for this documentary. I love the idea of exploring folk horror, and I think there's a lot of really great material to mine here, and I think there are some really fascinating insights. That said, I did think this documentary was a little long. It did try to kind of bite off a little more maybe than it could chew, and only that I think you could make a compelling documentary about like numerous subjects in here. Like I think you could just break off the English folk horror or American folk horror, because I think there's a lot of stuff to talk about in there. And I think there were just some places where I found myself just wanting to watch the movies as opposed to hearing people talk about them, because at some points it felt like the commentary was like a little bit repetitive, even though, like I said, there were some really interesting insights, like especially for me when they were getting into American folk horror and like how colonialism and like colored our perspective of indigenous people in film, and how like the Civil War impacted like folk horror. I thought that was some like really juicy stuff in there. But I feel like because the movie is trying to cover so much ground, it's just difficult to get it all in and to do it all in a compelling way that holds your attention for over 3 hours, at least for me anyway.
Dave, what did you think?
I'm pretty much in agreement with Evan. I think that it's folk horror, let's put that in quotes. It's such a broad topic, and every region of the world has its own folk stories, for lack of a better term. And so in this movie, you're covering the English and Celtic folk horror and American folk horror and Brazilian folk horror, and I can't even remember like all of the places they cover, but it's so extensive, and some of it's more interesting than other stuff, at least to me. And also the details on like some of the Brazilian stuff or the Mexican stuff isn't as they spend, I would say, the bulk of the time in this movie talking about English folk horror. And not without reason, but the other stuff, especially in a documentary this long, seems like it gets short shrift because of it. And there's also kind of this idea that not that all folk horror springs from English Celtic folk horror, because they make the point that it doesn't, but it kind of feels like that's what it's saying, just because they spend so much time on English folk horror. And also, folk stories kind of all have the same like creepy crawly things at their heart. So I don't know. It like Evan, I really wanted to watch a lot of these movies more than I wanted to see a bunch of talking heads talk about them. That's basically where I come from on it.
Okay. Well, I absolutely adored this. I loved this. I actually want to watch it again, and I can't wait to watch it again and take even more notes, because I took some notes while watching, and I want to take more thorough notes because I am an academic and I love it. And I learned a lot, which I appreciate. I think the editing in this is great. I think it's a fantastic weaving of film clips and interviews and cinema history and really great film contextuality and analysis. And I found it insightful and robust. And I thought the interviews with the filmmakers and film critics and historians were really great, and just I found them absolutely compelling, and I was riveted, and I could have listened to some of the people talk for hours more. So I was absolutely delighted by this film. I also, like you, Evan, I thought the delving into American folk horror and looking at the colonialism and looking at Southern Gothic, looking at the treatment of indigenous people and how awful it is. And I really loved the critic who was talking, or not, he's not a critic. He's director, I believe, of an institute, but he was talking about Indigenous film, and he was talking about Indigenous people and how there's no such thing as an Indian burial ground. He's like, that just doesn't exist. And he's like, and he named all these various tribes, and he's like, they have they have burial grounds. And he's like, when you take a multinational people and you reduce them to one label, that of Indian, you're basically just erasing, their humanity and their nuance and cultures, which is not a surprise that a colonizing nation like us would do that. And I really appreciated that discussion. And I really appreciated the discussion on Black people in folk horror and the fears during Reconstruction and, all of that. And also, there's so much to dig into and why folk horror keeps returning to New England. And I loved the segment on witchcraft and paganism. And I mean, as someone who used to be super into paganism and Wicca, I found that also riveting, even though a lot of that I already knew. Still think it's presented in a really compelling way, and about, the fear of femininity and feminine power, and how, it's the male anxiety of women's growing power. And so I loved all of that. I will say, it's great that the last hour of the documentary delves into global folk horror. And I was really fascinated about hearing all from different parts of the world, how they interpret folk horror and how they do horror films. But at the same time, there's so much overlap. It's so fascinating that these tropes and archetypes and all these myths, there's so many different, they're told in such different ways across the world, but at the same time, they're so similar, like talking about La Llorona. But there's also in addition to the weeping woman, there's the crying woman in like Japan. And then there's also banshees who are screaming in Celtic myth. And so it's so fascinating. But I really love it. But it is interesting, Dave, that you talk about how they point out that folk horror did not start in Great Britain, in England, but it very much feels that way, especially when we're talking about horror films. But it is interesting that they're going to kick off the documentary with that, and that there is so much focus on American horror, folk horror, and British folk horror. And I would have loved a little bit more time on global folk horror, but I'm so glad, because I was worried it was just going to be American and British, and it was really, really great to see that it was more diverse than that. So it was nice.
Yeah.
I would add that I liked that the movie or the documentary referenced some modern films, like really recent stuff, like Midsummer and The Witch, and just other folk horror films that have been part of like our recent canon. And it wasn't just the kind of like 60s and 70s stuff, even though that was like a pretty big focus. And that was like a time where there was a lot of folk horror output, I guess is the best word I can use to describe it. But I like that they were tying it into very recent films, because I think there have been some really great films like The Witch, like Midsummer, that have great things to say in this genre and are, current, but also like harken back to these themes. And that was another thing that I appreciated, was when they were talking about British folk horror and this kind of push and pull between like urbanism and ruralism, and how like there's this, period for such a long time where there were so many rural areas in England. And then there was like the encroachment of like development and like the suburbs, and how that kind of push and pull was really effective in terms of creating a great like folk horror movie. And I dug that aspect of the doc as well.
I absolutely agree. And like also looking at how the fears of, for instance, like the rural South, and how they felt like they were left behind and they were dealing with so much poverty. And that really worked into a lot of horror as well. And, the Vietnam War and how that worked into horror, of course. And and that's why it's so important to know history and to know how the context of these films. And I love that. I also love how there's discussion about voodoo and hoodoo, and how those are two completely different, things. One is tied to magic, one is tied to the religion. But most white filmmakers don't get that right, and they don't know the difference, and so they constantly conflate them and portray it inaccurately. And yeah, that is interesting. And like, but yeah, it's everything you're saying, I agree with, and I find it all really, really fascinating. And I feel like there's so many things in this that I would love to delve in. I just like the scope of it is kind of overwhelming, because there's just so many parts of the documentary that I'm like, that's great, that's so fascinating. And yeah, like the fear of like weird quote unquote, one of the critics or someone said the fear of weird Christians, and I also talk of prairie horror and how and so much horror is about being in confined spaces or being in houses that are haunted, but yet on the prairie it's all wide open, but that's also feels claustrophobic in its own way. And I love that there are so many filmmakers, horror filmmakers, who are in this. Like I love that we get Robert Eggers and Maddie Doe and Emma Tammy and Alice Lowe, and just so many great horror filmmakers in this, and I really, really appreciated that. Dave, you're awfully quiet. Did you have any other thoughts on this?
No, I mean, I appreciated seeing a lot of the filmmakers in there. I was The Witch is one of my favorite horror movies of the last decade, so it was really cool to see Robert Eggers in there. And I did appreciate seeing the other directors in there. There was an English director whose name I want to say Alison Lowe. Is that her name?
It's Alice Lowe.
Alice Lowe. She was really cool. I'd like to see some of her movies.
You should. Revenge is amazing.
Yeah, it looked. Yeah, well, she was just also. I just liked kind of what she had to say. She stuck out to me in particular. But I just circle around to what I said before. I wanted to watch the movies more than I wanted to like. I mean, the backstory, the history of folk horror is interesting, but I kind of feel like this maybe would have been better for me as a series of like 6 60-minute to 90-minute documentaries on Celtic folk horror, American folk horror, Brazilian folk horror, Mexican folk horror. You know what I mean? Nigerian folk horror, whatever. And that would have been. I think that would have worked better for me. It would have also been more bite size. I mean, just this is 3 hours and it's as long as Titanic. So it's a lot to get through, but it is compelling. It is worth watching, especially if this is your bag. So in that regard, I think it's worthwhile to see. It's just, it's a lot.
The one thing I will say is that kind of watching this in a weird way, I was thinking, what isn't folk horror? It feels like, because I always think of it as, I always think of it as, I definitely think of, The Wicker Man, but I also think of, obviously of Midsummer and The Witch, and obviously there are plenty of other films that have that, similar aesthetic, but there are so many other films that I would never have even thought of as folk horror, and that really kind of expanded my view of that. But then I'm like, wait, what isn't folk horror? Like, it's fascinating to me. But anyway. So, all right. Well, let's talk about our last film of the evening, the main event. Well, really not the main event. All of these films are the main event. But the last film, Godzilla versus Kong. So this is a kaiju film directed by Adam Wingard. It's a sequel to Godzilla King of the Monsters and Kong Skull Island. And it's basically that. It is King Kong and Godzilla ultimately fighting each other.
This is, I would say, honestly, it feels like more of a Kong movie than a Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot more screen time spent on Kong and his crew of people. And I think it's interesting that like Godzilla has got his crew and Kong has got his crew, but they don't end up crossing paths in the movie.
Yeah, that's true.
I feel like that's kind of a missed opportunity for them to like, I don't know. I feel like at points their stories feel very disparate, but like basically, Godzilla, pops up, attacks this spot in Florida, which is home to this company, Apex Cybernetics technology company. People don't know why, but they're like, oh crap, Godzilla's now attacking people. This is bad. So we need something to fight back. And they are aware of this force of energy in the center of the earth. Like, they need to get to, and they think, well, Kong is the only other like strong enough creature, and he could have come from there. So let's take him there and see if he'll lead us to this power, so we can come back and maybe tangle with Godzilla and get Godzilla under control. So that's like one piece of the plot, and then the other piece is that Godzilla's crew, which is Brian Tyree Henry, who's like a conspiracy theorist podcaster. We've got Millie Bobby Brown and this kid Julian Dennison. I didn't see the previous Godzilla movie, so I'm apologies about this. But like that crew is like snooping around and trying to figure out what Apex Systems is up to, and we find out that they're building Mecha Godzilla, and that's why Godzilla's pissed. Because I guess it doesn't like things competing for its dominance, so it's going after them. And so yeah, you can guess where it goes from there. You know, Kong and Godzilla have to team up later to fight Mecha Godzilla and to take it down. Am I missing any like crucial stuff for the rest of the plot?
No.
I don't think so.
What I thought was interesting is that it's actually in the end really easy to kill Mecha Godzilla. It's like all of the battles. I mean, it really is Godzilla versus Kong in this, with Kong mostly coming out on top, and them forming an uneasy alliance, and then they kill Mecha Godzilla in like 2 seconds. This is not my kind of movie, but it's better than it should be, or it moves better than it should be. I mean, it's all so dumb. The human characters are there only to like,
it is,
yeah, only to like advance plot threads. It's really about like monsters throwing each other around, which gets for me boring really quickly, especially since Godzilla's just like not even like, who the fuck is Godzilla in the original movie, the Japanese movie from the mid 50s or whatever, and then they inserted Raymond Burr for American release. It's very clear what that movie's about. Why is Godzilla around? He's just, I don't get it. And also just the absolute, and I know that this is a, monsters throwing things movie, so I shouldn't complain about this probably, but just the body count in this movie of the dead humans just must be in the tens of thousands, considering how many office buildings they destroy, the fucking Ferris wheel, wherever they end up. I mean, just
battleships.
I mean, just relentless human slaughter. And I have to say that even though she's evil, the way they kill, I can't remember the actor's name, but she's in I Care a Lot.
Gonzalez.
Thank you. The way they kill her character is it's just cruel. I mean, it's just cruel. I mean, you could make the argument that she's cruel too, but she hasn't killed anybody. And also it's just, it's all just the wanton destruction really got up my ass. So,
alrighty then.
But I didn't hate it. So, what the fuck do I know? I mean, I just bitched about it for 5 minutes. I'm like, but it wasn't so bad.
I will say, in addition to her death being cruel, there were other people in that plane with her. Yeah. They had nothing to do with it. They were innocent and they're murdered too.
Well, it's just like everybody who's like, working on a Tuesday afternoon, and all of a sudden fucking Godzilla throws King Kong through their office building. King Kong has all of these feelings that you learn, and he can sign and all that, and he's thoughtful and all this shit. Meanwhile, he's throwing fucking, towers through towers like it's nothing. I mean, oh my God. Anyway, I don't even know why I'm bothering to criticize this, because that's not what this movie's about. This movie is about monsters beating each other up, which it has plenty of.
Evan, what did you think?
It was all right. I dig the monsters fighting each other and throwing shit around, and like the fact that they were fighting in Hong Kong just looked really cool with all the neon lights, and I dug all that. Like, that was fun. And I've heard people complain, like, in these movies, like, I want more character development for the humans. You know what? Not necessary. But what I would appreciate is some plot lines that made more sense. It's the kind of thing where you watch it and you're like, there's so many things that just don't add up in the story. And like, I know you're supposed to turn off your brain for this kind of movie, but like, how much can you suspend your disbelief sometimes when just like things just, they can't even play by their own rules. Like things just don't make sense. Like this whole hollow earth thing, and they need these like crafts that can like take them in inverse gravity, whatever that even means. And then like people can get out of the ships and walk around, which doesn't make any sense. Like there's so many things in this movie that don't add up. And if you spend too much time thinking about them, it will take you out of the movie and will ruin the movie's momentum. And I know some people have an easier time than others, but even I feel like I'm pretty good at suspending my disbelief. There are times where I just got distracted by things just straight up not making any sense.
Yeah. I'm also going to throw out there that the whole Hollow Earth thing is a plot line lifted directly from the 18th Choose Your Own Adventure book, The Underground Kingdom. Thank you.
Or is it taken from Jules Verne's Journey to the Center of the Earth?
Well, that too.
I don't know.
But I mean, I haven't read Journey to the Center of the Earth since I was like 11. But I remember.
No, I haven't either.
Yeah, but
so I don't know. I could be totally wrong.
I remember the Underground Kingdom like it was yesterday, and the whole thing about gravity reversing and this, that, and the other. It's exactly the same. And I also want to know, why are there like giant tools down there in the Hollow Earth that are just like hanging out? Was there a race of superhumans or super Kongs or something that could use tools? Did they mention that and I missed it? I mean, what the fuck?
I think it was implied.
Well, but I mean, in a movie where like they spell out literally everything, like they go to the trouble of explaining inverse gravity and all that shit, and then they're like, oh, here's a fucking battle axe. Use it, Kong. I mean, come on.
Right. What about you, Megan? What did you think about this movie?
I did not like it at all. Yeah, I didn't care about the film. It didn't hold my attention. I didn't care about any of the characters. And I kind of agree and also disagree with what you're saying, Evan, about you don't need to have a lot of character development. I disagree, actually. I think you always need character development, even a smidge. But having said that, I also think that you could go in a completely different route and you could eliminate the humans altogether and just focus on the kaiju. And you could just do that and have it be a straight up monster movie with no humans. And that would have been kind of an interesting departure. Not that that's what this film is, but it could have been. I don't think it's well written. I did not care about any of the characters, like nothing, none of them. And listen, I love Kyle Chandler. I love Alexander Skarsgård. I love Rebecca Hall. I love Millie Bobby Brown. Like there's some great actors in this, and I didn't care about any of them. And their performances they're probably doing the best they can with the material they have. I will say I liked the cinematography, and I like you, Evan, I really liked the usage of neon lights. That was really striking. And so often in action films, in big budget tentpole films, I often complain about the cinematography, that you can't really see what's happening and it's not really crisp and the fights aren't interesting. And I will say, I think that was more compelling here. So I will definitely say that's a strength of the film. But what this made me think more than anything else, so I have not seen the other two films that this is a sequel of. And technically the other three films, because it's also a sequel to Godzilla from 2014. And I feel like, you don't need to rehash everything that happened in previous films, but at the same time, a sequel should be able to stand on its own 2 feet. It should be its own entity. And I feel like the whole time I was watching this, I was like, was that covered in the last film? Was that covered 2 films ago? Am I missing something? Like the entire time I felt like I was missing the character motivations, the plot, the mythos of both Godzilla and King Kong. And I know the original mythos of both of those characters, but I felt like I was missing something in this world. So it was just really annoying and frustrating.
Yeah, I feel that. There were definitely points, because I didn't see the last Godzilla, but I had seen King Kong or Kong Skull Island rather, and I had seen the previous Godzilla, the first of these Godzilla movies, and I still was scratching my head in scenes, unsure about what's been covered in previous outings.
Yeah, I actually confused this for a little while with Pacific Rim, the second Pacific Rim. I was like, wait a minute, none of these people are like fucking. Where is everyone? Then I looked it up. I'm like, oh, different kaiju.
Dave.
Seriously, I've seen 2 of the other 3 movies. I unfortunately saw the first Godzilla, which they made the brilliant decision to not show any good battles until the end. That's what you want to see in a monster movie, is the people. Second, I saw Kong Skull Island, which was just torture for me. And I did not see I didn't even know there was a third movie. So, I mean, good. And I'm a critic. I should know this shit. Had no idea there was another Godzilla movie between this one and Kong Skull Island. So I'm glad it was under 2 hours. I'll tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, especially after seeing a 4-hour movie and a 3-hour movie this week.
Yeah, no doubt.
I will say I do really want to see Kong Skull Island for 2 reasons. One, because the Disaster Girls podcast. No, it is Disaster Divas. I was second guessing myself. They absolutely love Kong Skull Island, and I love their podcast. So I really want to see it for that. But I also want to see it because the director made homages to one of my favorite video games, Journey. So I'm very excited about that. But anywho, and I mean, how bad can a movie be with Brie Larson? Well, Dave, you said it was torturous, but I feel like I might appreciate some Brie Larson in my life.
Oh, I appreciate
I don't remember hating
it.
Divisive.
Yeah, I wanted to add one thing. I don't usually have things to add, even though I go ahead and add things anyway. But Megan, you had said just a few moments ago that you appreciated how much better this looks than your average monster movie, and you can see what the monsters are doing. It should be important to note that Adam Wingard, I don't know how good he is at it, but he has shot his own movies before. So maybe that's got something to do with it. I think he shot at least 2, maybe 3 of his own movies. Presumably low budge, but still, that when you're looking through a camera doing shots, you have more of an idea of what's going on than when you're not. So
that's true. I should clarify, I didn't actually mean that I think this looks better than other monster movies, although it certainly could. I meant action films in general, like just kind of like movies with explosions, movies with building destruction, kind of anything like that. Any kind of big budget, blow them up, things. Yeah. So things, I'm really doing a great job here. But that's kind of more what I meant. But yeah, but I also I'm so glad you mentioned Adam Wingard, because I absolutely am obsessed with You're Next. And so I was so excited
of the last decade, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. It's one of my favorites. I love watching it. And so I was super pumped to see this, and I'm just so sad that I was so disappointed. And maybe I should have gone in with lower expectations. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. And the other thing is too, is I know some diehard Godzilla fans, and maybe they would love this, maybe they wouldn't. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. It makes me sad that I didn't enjoy this more.
Yeah, I hear
That's
you.
a bummer.
It really is.
I went in with very low expectations, so I feel like there was nowhere to go but up.
You had the right plan, Evan.
Yeah.
I think I also just expect if Kyle Chandler is going to be in something, I'm going to see a lot of Kyle Chandler, and it's going to be great. But I shouldn't have expected that. But anywho, does anybody have any final thoughts that they want to share?
No, I said it all, man.
Same.
Evan? All right. Okay. So let's recap. Zack Snyder's Justice League. What do we say? Would we recommend it? Wow. Don't everybody answer at once.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you liked Justice League, you like DC movies, it's definitely worth watching. I don't think for like the casual superhero movie person, I would not recommend this movie, because who the fuck wants to watch 4 hours of movie when you're just like not emotionally invested? I think it's a good reference point to see how much better a movie could be with more time and character development and like a different approach. So it's a qualified C, I think, for me.
Yeah, I'd say that if you want to see why the United States of America is collapsing in on itself, definitely spend 4 hours watching Zack Snyder's Justice League. I mean, for all of its qualities, and it does have some, it celebrates so many things that are just so shitty. So
That was such a much more in-depth recap. I kind of love it. So I'm kind of torn about it too, because do you need to watch this movie again? Not necessarily, but at the same time, I actually enjoyed this. So I do agree with you, Evan. I think it's really interesting. It's an interesting case study to look at how a film can be so different based on editing and more time, and might I say more money, because there was an additional 70 million put into this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but I would say overall, especially if you haven't seen the original, which don't, but if you haven't seen that, I would say see this. I would just say if you're going to watch it, because there's chapters, it's easy to break it up. So watch it over a period of time, like you're watching a mini series.
Fair enough.
Oh, okay. So what about Wolfwalkers?
Hell yeah.
Dave?
Why not?
And I, of course, say see it. Definitely watch it as soon as possible. Oh, and you can see Wolfwalkers on Apple TV Plus, and you can see Zack Snyder's Justice League on HBO Max.
Yep.
And both are out right now. And Woodlands, Dark, and Days Bewitched, A History of Folk Horror. I should have mentioned this at the top, and I didn't. We saw this as part of South by Southwest. It is not out yet, and I don't believe it has a distribution date or a date of release yet. I'm not even sure if it's been picked up by distribution. Oh no, it has. It has, I believe. Anyway, now I'm rambling. But would we say see it?
Yeah. I'd say see it.
Yeah, I'd say treat it like you were talking about treating the Snyder Cut. Break it up into every time they get off into a different country, take a break and then come back to it.
I like that. I think that's a great way to watch it. I agree with that. And I loved this so much, so I would definitely recommend it. So keep your eyes peeled for it for when it is released. And Godzilla versus Kong, what would we say?
Skip it.
No.
Wait, did you say no? Don't skip it?
No, skip it. I mean, like, it was like, see,
I was shocked for a minute.
Was like one of those, how in a movie where someone will, some big thing will happen and then a person will look at it and go, no, and then just walk off screen. It's like that.
Nice. Yeah, I would say unless you're absolutely a King Kong, Godzilla completionist, then maybe see it. But yeah, I don't think you need to see it. I think you can skip it. I would say if you want to see this, I would say go see You're Next instead, but that's just me.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And I also want to give a shout out to our frequent guest and friend of the show, Dee Dee Crimmins, who has a great interview with Adam Wingard about this film at Rue Morgue.
Yay, Dee Dee.
Yay. And you can, if you do decide you want to see this, you can see this also on HBO Max. And it is out now. All right, so we want to give a huge thank you to our amazing editor, Otto Klammer. Otto, we are so grateful for the work you do week in and week out. Thank you so much for making us sound great. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We love you, Otto. And you can find Spoiler Piece Theater anywhere you get podcasts. You name it, we are there. You can also find us at our website, spoilerpiece.com. You can find us on social media. We're Spoiler Piece Theater on Facebook. We're at Spoiler Piece on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. If you want to reach out to us and tell us, hey guys, you're dead wrong. Godzilla vs. Kong is amazing. Or, hey, I love Wolfwalkers too. Then please reach out to us on social media. Or you can also email us at spoilerpiece@gmail.com, or you can give us a call
at 862-21-PEACE.
Leave us a voicemail. Let us know your thoughts. We always love hearing from you. And if you like the show, please rate and review us by going to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece and leave a review. It really helps us out. You can also go to Apple Podcasts and rate us there. That also helps us out tremendously and just gets the word out about the show. And if you really like the show, please consider joining our Patreon. This week, in our exclusive episode that we do each and every week, we talk about the 1987 film Some Kind of Wonderful, and we had a good conversation over there about that. And for $1 a month, you get a thank you shout out on the show. For $5 a month, you get access to exclusive weekly content, our bonus episodes, You also get to vote in monthly polls. And for $10 a month, you get to tell us what you would like us to watch and talk about each month. We also want to take this moment to thank our fantastic patrons.
Yeah, we do. I want to say a huge thank you to Bill Scahan, Sean Pensionar, Christopher Jensen, Bob Chipman, Charlie Nash, Davida Margolin, Zach Pigeon, Chris Wilkinson, Max Colville, Shona Glasgow, Rory Glenn, Shelley McCaskill, Mike, Lord of the Sith, Deirdre Crimmins, and Shauna Harris.
Thanks, patrons.
Thank you, patrons.
Thank you.
So my name is Megan Kearns. I'm a contributor to Edge Media Network. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association. You can follow me on Twitter at OpinionessWorld or on Instagram and Letterboxd at TheOpinioness.
My name is Dave Riedel. I write about movies for some places, and you can follow me on the Instagrams, Twitters, and Letterboxds as Dave Sees Movies.
And my name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living. You can follow me on Twitter and on Letterboxd as Real Recon, and that's real as in film reel.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
See you next week.